Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Wasteland radio podcast. It is back, and I have a very new guest, brand new guest here today. You may have seen his videos and you may have seen him in some collaborations in some cartoons. Please help me welcome the wonderful Silver Quill.
Greetings, people of the interwebs.
All right. So, why don't you give if you want to give like a little introduction about who you are and what you do, that's fine.
Well, I go by many names, most of them insulting, but I'm mostly known as Silver Quill. I am a brony reviewer. I do videos on YouTube talking about My Little Pony, the show, but also some of the themes and concepts that kind of use My Little Pony as dressing to show themselves in public.
Hmm, interesting.
So that's something I enjoy. I've come to enjoy. So I do videos. I've written reviews and editorials for Equestria Daily, and I host comics on DeviantArt.
Hmm, nice. So, shall we get started with the questions?
Oh, let's shall.
All right, and at any given time, if you want to ask me a question, that's fine. Feel free to stop me.
Already.
Okay, okay. All right, so I'm gonna. All right. So, how did you find or get involved in this particular fandom?
What? Once upon a time, this was what 2011. Was working a job where you didn't get to see people at their best. And so I'd come home and I'd need to decompress. And usually that was watching something funny online. It's kind of funny that television was slackening in my life. Uh, and the funniest thing is that when I was watching Rooster Teeth Productions, Red versus Blue, and Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged, everyone was making reference to My Little Pony. I said, My Little Pony, isn't that the show I didn't watch back in the 80s because Transformers was on? So I think my curiosity was finally piqued when Rooster Teeth posted a comic of one of their team members hanging out with Rainbow Dash. And so I totally legally accessed the show, wink, wink, and just started watching. And it was like one or two episodes a night for a while. I caught up just as season two had started. And I was impressed. And usually, from my time in anime, I know that people draw fan art or come up with their own creations. So I hunted online and was just blown away by the sheer scope of content.
Hmm.
And having said, I've been consistently entertained for several weeks thanks to this. And I really like what this fandom is putting out. It seems pretty fun. So let's keep going. And it just snowballed from there.
Hmm, interesting. So what was your initial reaction when you first heard like a group of older men watching a little girl show?
Was tempted to break into song. The times they are a changing. Uh, honestly, I was. Oh, actually, no. I had prep work for this. In high school, I was a fan of Sailor Moon when it first hit our shores. And I remember being in a comic book shop and someone saying, "Oh, Sailor Moon, that needs to die." And I said nothing. I just kept my head down. And in some ways, I think that sort of prepped me to say, "Okay, here's some guys who like this show. What does this show do to impress them so?" That's about it.
What are your thoughts on like how it has evolved into what it is now?
Well, in some ways, it's like every other fandom. In other ways, it seems a little bit more exceptional. Every fandom goes through periods of growth, uh, slowing, maybe a little bit of shrinking, or then maybe a fresh explosion. Every fandom has arguments or divisive events. So when people try to say, "Oh, bronies are unlike any other fandom," I think no, there are parallels. In other ways, the way people seem to connect over this show and the way it sort of emboldened people to be a little more comfortable with themselves, I find very positive.
Hmm, nice. Um, what are your thoughts about the show compared to season one, and what are your thoughts on what it is now that it's past its sixth season?
6 seasons. Oh, it's stunning when one thinks that this show, people weren't sure it would make it past season one once upon a time. And then episode 65 would be the end for syndication. And then, oh, look, here we are about to enter season 7. Uh, I think the show has to change over that period. It has to reinvent something, otherwise it becomes stagnant. You hear people criticizing The Simpsons for similar methods. In terms of how it's changed, I've enjoyed how the scope has broadened. It's no longer just about Twilight. It's about the whole cast, and they've all had very strong showings. Some of the changes I feel like were rushed but never really pursued or studied within the show, and that feels a little bit more. That's a little bit more frustrating. There's nothing so disappointing as an idea that's never really explored or developed.
Hmm.
By the way, what was your reaction when Twilight became an alicorn?
Um, I had mixed reviews. I know, like, a lot of people seem to like overreact, like, "Oh no, the show's gonna change. Oh, she's gonna live forever, and all her friends are gonna die." And it's like, I don't know about all that, but I think as the show went on, I kind of like forgot the fact that she was an alicorn. But it's like, oh, she has wings now. Oh, I guess that's nice.
Yeah,
She's still Twilight.
she's still adorable.
Yes. Uh, so, what do you think about the show compared to the spin-off series that is Equestria Girls?
Oh well, the show trumps it easily. I mean, it's the show that got us all invested. It's the show that allows magic to be a consistent rather than a special event. I mean, Equestria Girls, it's usually teen high school events, and then at the end, a magical being. Equestria, there's you use magic 3 times before breakfast. So Equestria Girls can't compete, but thankfully, it's not really meant to.
All right. So, how did you create a name for yourself? Like, how did you create? How did you come up with Silver Quill?
Well, well, you see, it came to me in a fever dream after one too many jalapenos. Uh, Basically, I started with comics. At first, I was just passively viewing the show, but anytime I get involved in a show or take an interest in fandom, I feel like I have to create something. I have to just make something that works. So I created a DeviantArt account and started drawing comics. None of renowned at first, but I got some positive feedback, which encouraged me. Got featured on Equestria Daily, which was stunning to see the numbers just jump throughout the day. It was fascinating, uh, and so that kept evolving. And because there was sort of this back and forth, I would put something forth, the audience would respond, and that would encourage me to try something else, and they'd respond, and it just kept going, sort of a loop of energy flowing between. And so that kept going. I'd used the name Silver Quill because I hold writing very important. So quill was the best word I could think of to describe it. And silver, again, from the old Sailor Moon days when I was a fan of that. And silver was the most recurring color. So it seemed to fit. Also, I like that silver is good, but it's not yet gold. It's working, it's up there. And I thought that's a good way to describe where I am.
Hmm.
And then, although I'm mostly known for reviews now, but I used the audience I gathered on DeviantArt as a springboard into producing YouTube videos. And thankfully, again, that flow of energy has continued.
So your OC is a griffin. What made you choose a griffin as a character?
Small correction is a hippogriff.
Oh.
So basically, when I realized I want to do some YouTube videos, get on my digital soapbox a little, I thought, okay, I looked around YouTube at all the other Brony reviewers, and they all had pony OCs. And I thought, if I'm going to even get people to take a second look at me, I need something to catch their eye right away. I can't use a pony. But that presented a problem. What do you use? There's ample creatures in this world, but none of them are as aesthetically attractive as ponies. You know, they're all hard angles and blocky shapes, whereas ponies are streamlined, adorable. Uh, so I flipped through a book, The Wizard's Bestiary, and I chanced upon hippogriffs, the offspring of a griffin and a horse. And I thought to myself, well, that could work. I could still have a cutie mark, but I could be a little bit different, just as I hope to be from the brony reviewers who were on the scene at the time. So I took sketchbook. I took some screenshots of Big Macintosh and Gilda, the two best references I could figure out, and with a little refinement and some feedback from folks on DeviantArt, I got the Silver Quill.
Interesting.
And so when people call me a horse's patoot, they're biologically correct.
So, who would you say is your favorite character from the show?
Oh, Fluttershy.
Fluttershy. Right.
Definitely. She's so much like I was growing up.
Okay. So you do a lot of analyzing and reviewing and all that sort of interesting stuff. Do you have a particular episode that you liked?
Oh, just a favorite episode?
Yes.
Oh, yes, most definitely. Sisterhood Social. It was, in my eyes, it was the best balance of story, character, fun setting. Funny enough, no music, but truth be told, I'm not very musically inclined. So that, to this day, has remained my favorite episode.
What would you be? What would you say is your favorite song out of all the songs you have heard?
Oh, now we're getting tricky. I will say I've listened to Apples to the Core more than any, but I think my favorite is Winter Wrap Up, of which I listen to the remixes quite frequently. Winter Wrap Up was just this first grand big production that involved the whole show, the whole of Ponyville. So it had all these characters working towards a singular purpose, and I found that just so interesting and energetic.
Interesting. All right. Okay. Um, has there been anything in this fandom that has particularly wowed you in any way?
Young man at Everfree Northwest. I was helping host a voice actor panel with some folks who had been active in the anime industry, and folks were lining up for questions. And I, truthfully, once the voice actors start talking, the MC's role is complete. So I just adjusted the microphone for their height. And this young man came up. He was in a wheelchair, and I moved to adjust the mic, but he waved me off. I said, "Are you sure?" And he said, "Yeah, we're good." So I backed off. He hoisted himself upright and for at least 5 minutes held a conversation with the voice actors and actresses, just holding himself upright, not asking for special treatment, but also not asking that people stand in awe. He was just putting forth his best self in this sort of quiet strength. And I saw that, I just thought, that is really amazing. And I see those acts of quiet strength so much in this fandom. I see people being just a little bolder, being a little bit more optimistic. It means more than someone who wins a quibble online.
Now, has there been anything that somebody has made you that has wowed you? Like, has there any been anything in this fandom that somebody has made like themselves that made you think, wow, that's amazing?
Oh, so much of the fan art I've seen, the animations. Let's see here. Uh, Good Night, Lullaby for a Princess. The animation was just stunning and beautiful. as was Children of the Night. I could list any number of fan arts and comics, often involving a truly expansive cast. Although I think the most recent one was this someone took all the characters from the show they could find and arranged them in a Roy G. Biv gradient. Uh, just this huge wall of characters forming this perfect red, yellow, orange, green. I'm getting the colors wrong already. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet. Uh, just this stunning color. And I just thought, wow, the hours that must have taken.
Mm. Wow. Okay. So besides ponies, what else do you like to do?
You mean there's something other than ponies? Oh,
Really?
I
Yeah.
I'm an avid fan of science fiction and fantasy, so I listen to a lot of audiobooks while I do drawing. I do some writing in addition to my scripts, hoping one day to see one of my books on uh, the tattered cover or Barnes and Noble bookshelves. That doesn't have to happen tomorrow, but it's still a goal. Uh, Hang out with my friends, and we usually watch Japanese superhero shows or funny or bad movies. And the bad movies are usually pretty funny too.
So do you have a current job?
Yeah, I work customer service for a print company.
Hmm. Okay. So so when you started your channel, did you just said you did you drew comics.
Hmm.
And then it kind of evolved into analyzing the show as a whole. So how did you get into how did that start?
Well, it did start with Princess Twilight or Magical Mystery Cure. Uh, 9 months between the end of season 3 and the start of season 4. And in that 9 months, there was not a moment's peace within the fandom. People seemed to be livid, and just as things were dying down, Hasbro would put out an Equestria Girls notice or some other piece of tease of the new upcoming episodes, and people would start arguing all over again. And I looked around, and even the reviewers I was watching at the time didn't seem to want to just put this issue in the forefront. Just say, here's where I stand on this, or here's what I see going right, here's what I see going wrong. Just put it out there for folks to consider. And I think some of the fandom had affected me enough that I said, okay, this is where you be the change you want to see. So I said, okay, I have video editing experience, I have video editing software. Let's get this going. And that is my very first video was talking about the potential pros and cons of Princess Twilight. The character, not the episodes.
Okay. Hmm. Um, I lost my train of thought. So when it comes to analyzing, how do you break a character down? Like, how do you? hmm, I'm trying to word the question because I know you did a panel where you talked about all the villains and you kind of like broke them down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, how did you learn to do that?
Well, part of it is just a lot of reading on the idea beforehand. Uh, well, with characters I like, I've done character breakdowns where I usually follow a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 format. It's kind of a running theme or joke. So I try to count out events in their lives to try and match it up. Uh, so like Applejack's 3 family members, or uh, oh, now I'm trying to remember all that I put forth. The 2 modes of Rainbow Dash, or the 2 extremes of Fluttershy, things like that. So that was one way to express and sort of direct myself into how I viewed the characters, how to put sort of a vague thought into a concrete expression. For the villains, I was reading up on archetypes and why they're the heroes, and I looked at their shadows, the negative counterparts. And I said, okay, who in the show matches this description? It's kind of like those childhood toys where you fit the ball through the hole or a square. It teaches you the shapes. This is learning to take the general outline of a shadow and put a villain as its representation.
Interesting. All right. This is, I think this question is going to be a multiple asks. So I'm going to try to break it down. So the Team Fortress 2 Analyst Series, what is that in particular?
There you go. For a minute there, I thought you said this was going to be multiple choice. I was like, no, I'm not good at that. It's kind of A and it's kind of C. But Team Fortress 2 Analyst Anarchy is the brainchild of Dr. Wolf and Commander Firebrand, who both enjoy playing Team Fortress 2. They wanted to gather together a bunch of brony reviewers and satirize what is already a chaotic and energetic game. So we're even worse than the TF2 characters because we have not a clue what we're doing. Myself especially, because I've never played it. But of course they said, you take a lot of abuse in your videos. Would you like to be the heavy who has been beaten up in every single character video Valve has put forth? I was like, sure. I think that's a compliment.
I think the next question was how exactly did it get started? Like, who came up with the idea? How did you get involved? But I think you were just kind of answered that.
Well, the main goal was that Dr. Wolf wanted to talk about relationships. Well, that's a little hard to talk about with another person unless they're in a relationship. They thought, what if he counseled a pair of reviewers who had started one? And so part of the very first TF2 was about Firebrand asking out Ink Rose as OC characters, but people enjoyed it so much that it just took on a life of its own.
And I think the other question was it was gonna be do any of you that are in it do play TF2?
Oh, many of them. Let's see. Like I say, Dr. Wolf, Josh. I'm pretty sure Ink Rose, Voice of Reason, Toon Critica, and Eliora, I think have played it. I have not, and it's funny. I used to be an avid gamer back in the day, back when I was young and hip and jiggy with it, But nowadays, I've got a video to make, or I've got to focus on work. My video gaming skills have waned.
TF2 is definitely a hard game. As someone who's played countless hours as the same character over and over again.
Oh, who's your fave?
I'm probably gonna say the Pyro, but I think the Engineer is the one that I play the most.
Yeah, I will say the Pyro is funny. It's just because you have no idea what he or she is saying.
Yeah.
I've heard people speculate the Pyro is female, but I don't know what they're basing that on.
From what I've seen in one of I think it was a game theory video. I think it fully explained in great detail the character itself and some hidden clues that it's a he, but he's a flamboyant gayish he maybe.
Don't you mean a flame buoyantish?
Yes, indeed. So tell us a little bit more about the collaboration projects that you've been a part of.
Oh goodness, of which there have been many.
Yes.
Well, let's see. One group does very steady holiday videos, or at least very very ambitious holiday videos. It started when Anthony C reached out to some people to do a Halloween special. He wanted to just get folks together and address, well, just have a good Halloween romp. I think he's always been eager to create original content, something beyond just reviewing someone else's work. And so he created the Baritone Tales, of whom I can only do the poorest of impersonations. Yes. So he contacted me and said, "Hey, would you like to be a part of this?" I said, "Sure." It sounded interesting. It was the first collab where I was really just doing a voice and contributing my part to the writing. It was very interesting to turn the animation and the a lot of the art over to other people. A bit less stressful too.
Ah, yes. The artwork by isn't what's his name? What's his name? I think he changed his name. What is it? Viva
Oh,
Riveria? Does
oh,
all
this was
the
this was before Viva joined our troupe.
he
Actually, Antony's sister is a very talented artist, and she helped set a lot of things up. She is the designer of Baron Tall Tales.
oh. And then there's yeah, you guys do a lot of the holiday ones. You did a couple of different ones. One of them was like a dating show.
Yes, the shipping game.
Uh, and then there was I think it was like original. It was a story, but I don't know whatever became of it. It had something to do with cockatrices.
Oh, a serpent's tail.
Yeah, that one.
That one. That was meant to be a St. Patrick's Day story, but unfortunately we missed the mark, so we had to aim for the weekend immediately after.
Oh. And there was the there was oh yeah, you did the Monty Python one. That one was hilarious.
That was the one I think everyone just seized on. They were all drooling for it because everybody loves Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I've yet to meet someone who said no, I don't like that movie. I'm sure the world is big enough and diverse enough that someone out there does not like it, but I've yet to meet them. And when we do, we will have a polite agree to disagree. Harumph.
uh, hmm. And all right, so here comes the generic question that you probably get asked many a times. What programs do you use?
It's been an ever evolving process. I worked as a video editor for 5 years, and so I had a very powerful editing program called Final Cut Pro 6 on my computer and I stubbornly stuck to that for a very long time. Audio was a different story. First, I used GarageBand, which comes with every Apple computer, and it does the job, but it's not that great. Then I upgraded to Audacity, which was far more user friendly, far more powerful, but even then there were limitations. So, about the time that I realized that Final Cut had gotten so old that uh, video codecs, file types, graphics, all of them were just starting to not interface. And so, in a weird way, the technology world was just forcing Final Cut out of the spotlight. And when I looked online and said, "Okay, what's the new hotness?" Adobe Premiere Pro was had reclaimed its title as the industry standard for editing. Final Cut Pro 10 was a slap in the face.
Now, do you use all that kind of stuff for like all of your videos or just some of your videos?
Oh, all of my videos. I
Okay.
record all my voiceovers in Adobe Audition. I edit in Premiere Pro. I use Photoshop and Illustrator to create the graphics. Uh, let's see if I have some software conversion for getting episodes, usually from uh, DVDs and Blu-rays. It's
Hmm.
the only way I can get the footage now.
Hmm. Let's see. Um, so for all of your videos, you tend to use your voice rather than in front of a camera. So instead of using a instead of camera, you use a microphone. Do you have a particular microphone? Do you recommend a microphone? Like, which is the best microphone?
Let's see. Right now, I'm using a Rode RODE condenser microphone. It has a shock mount, and it's very powerful. The trick is that you have to have some connecting boxes, an amplifier to handle the analog signal, a digital converter to get it into the computer. Far simpler is the Blue Yeti microphone that I used for a good while. The only problem is that because it's powered by the USB cord, there's an electronic hum you have to filter out.
Hmm. That's funny. I actually have a Blue Yeti.
It's very user friendly and an excellent mic, but after a while I would always notice that just when I would stop talking, you'd hear this electronic whine that I couldn't get rid of.
Yeah.
And there's this sort of dissatisfaction that drives me to get better audio, better video whenever possible.
Pardon me. I'm getting over a cold, so I'm a little bit ill.
Oh, I know that feeling. I last year in particular, I had con crud just about after every con I went to. Just like, why does my immune system hate me?
Well, my immune system hates me because it's way too darn cold outside. Ugh. Um. So, tell us your experience about going to convention. What's that like for you?
Oh, it's changed over time. I mean, when I first started in the fandom, I went to BabsCon 2012. I think that was the first. That was the second BabsCon, my first Brony convention. I'd been to anime conventions where one, I went on a rampage through the vending halls because there's you cannot get Gundam model kits anywhere but at a convention sometimes. Uh, and so I was looking forward to just seeing what was there. And I watched some panels and I enjoyed it, but it was more fun to present, to start putting forth my own panels. And as my videos gained popularity, I started to draw crowds. It's escalated where now I'm being listed as community guest. I'll be a community guest at BabsCon 2017. I've been community guest at Crystal Mountain, Running of the Leaves, Everfree Northwest. Nightmare Nights treated me like a prince, which I was like, guys, you're going to spoil me rotten here. But they were marvelous. And I've been humbled that people keep coming to my panels and taking an interest and then coming up and talking to me. It's when I get to meet the people who watch my videos, and that makes it so much more real. I appreciate all the subscribers and the comments, but getting to meet people face to face and hear their stories a little more, it's a very humanizing experience.
Hmm. And then it's always weird for us because we're meeting somebody who's famous, and we're like, "Hi," and it's like, "Okay, I'm just gonna walk away now."
Uh, well, that's the. I am a fan of this show, same as everyone. I am a human being who likes My Little Pony, and that's really as far as it goes. There's no superstardom. I was not blessed by the gods with a divine power. I'm just a guy, and I sort of laugh to myself that the moment I leave a convention and get on a plane, I'm back to being that guy. Silver Quill, he'll be back online.
Yeah. So, so in contrast to conventions, how do you feel like running panels like at conventions? Do you feel like it's like kind of like a job?
Well, it's very nerve wracking. I mean, there's a reason people say that public speaking is more frightening than death. I mean, you put yourself up there and you feel sort of the weight of the audience and their collective attention, and you want everything to go right, but you're worried. It's when I start presenting and I get into the groove. And again, it's that back and forth energy from the audience. The more people are invested, the more confident I feel. The more confident I feel, the more I'm able to gain their investment. It builds. And so you get in it, and suddenly, once you can express yourself, everything starts to come together for real. But there's a lot of practice and a lot of prep work. I wouldn't call it a job, but it's something where I definitely want to show my best self.
Okay. Let's see. Do you are a huge fan of movies? So do you have a particularly favorite movie? that you like to watch?
Oh, well, like I say, Monty Python and the Holy Grail is always a winner. I don't have like one movie I'll watch all the time, every day if I could, but I have some favorites. The original Transformers movie is the only Transformers movie.
Okay.
I, I don't care how many things Bay blows up. We'll never have Orson Welles as Unicron. Let's see here. So the original Star Wars trilogy. Recently, Inside Out and Up.
Nice. Any movies that you're looking forward to?
The credit scene of Power Rangers, which means it'll be over. Uh, oh, let's see here. What's the next big one? I just saw Lego Batman, which was a lot of fun.
Yes, that one was really funny.
But I don't think. Gosh, I'm trying to remember what the next movie I'm really looking forward to is, and it might be Star Wars: The Last Jedi. Everything else is sort of. Oh no, what am I saying? Guardians of the Galaxy 2.
Huh.
Yeah, that's coming out before Star Wars, and I love the first one. That's another movie I'd gladly watch. It's funny, every time I hear "Come and Get Your Love," I'm tempted to go dancing through an alien ruin. It's a little hard.
Yeah. So you said you're a particular fan of the sci-fi and fantasy. So who's your favorite? Do you actor that you like?
Well, I swooned for Peter Dinklage.
Okay.
He does a fantastic job. Of course, I always hold a high regard for the Star Wars cast, but I'm very odd in that I can't, for the life of me, recognize an actor's name when someone brings up in conversation. But if they say the character they presented, like, oh yeah, that guy, and that's where I really start to enjoy them. So, slightly outside the realm of fantasy and sci-fi is, oh, of course, now that I'm trying to invoke it, I'm blanking on his name. He played Alan Shore in Boston Legal. James Spader. There we go. James Spader is one of my favorite actors.
All right. Going back to the movie subject. What kind of movies do you particularly like? Do you like live action or do you like animation?
In honesty, I feel like the line between the two is blended significantly. Uh, I always find it weird when people scoff at animation and then they go see The Lord of the Rings, a fantastic movie, but you realize they didn't get ogres and wargs out to New Zealand for a remote shoot, or have giant mammoths getting felled by elves. That's all CG. Uh, so in truth, the answer is I like both. Give me a good story and we'll talk. I don't care if it's live action or CG. And to be honest, when people try to draw a distinction, I find that they're not really considering all that goes into it.
Well, I like to try to try to answer like make a rebuttal or something like that.
Well, it's not meant as a denouncement, but case in point, did you watch the making of the Avengers?
Uh, I don't think so.
There's a brief scene where they're showing a fight where Hawkeye is disarming the army in the first movie, battles a guy, several punches and kicks, grabs an arrow and just in his hand and just drives it into the dude's skull. Violent. Then they show the making of where he is on a green screen set. And believe me, the actor is doing very coordinated work. That is the one thing live action does have over CG. You have to get an actor to really go through the motions. But the arrowhead, the enemy, the background, even parts of the car were all green screen. And I felt that's still adding a hint of animation to it.
Okay. Hmm. Okay. You don't play any video games. You're
Oh, I didn't say I didn't play any video games.
oh
Uh,
okay.
a, fr- a friend from high school and I, we get together every Wednesday online, and because we both have very separate lives right now, we can't get involved in like something super devoted. But hop into Overwatch and win and lose for a good 2 hours, or play through Destiny and just it's kind of funny. While Overwatch is this adrenaline shot, Destiny is kind of laid back. You get your character strong enough, and pretty soon the hordes of hell that are storming towards you are, boom, headshot, headshot, headshot for you, headshot for you. Oh, would you like a headshot? There you go. The violent Oprah Winfrey. You get a headshot, and
And
you
you
get
get
a
a
headshot,
shot.
and you get a headshot.
Yeah, cool. Um, you liked Sailor Moon when it first came overseas, and frankly, so did I. How about any other animes that you particularly like?
Oh yes. Well, I very much enjoy Dragon Ball, though I will say Z. Sometimes you look back at how many episodes it took just to complete a certain fight, and just like, oh, guys, can we pick it up the pace? But I still love it. I've been watching Dragon Ball Super with great enjoyment. Let's see here. Other anime I've really enjoyed. There's stuff that comes in and departs. Gundam has always been sort of a roller coaster ride. There's varying degrees of fascination. Fatal Fury, when I was just getting into anime, I couldn't believe some of the more intense fights, especially the second movie, Terry versus Krauser. Uh, Dragon Drive. Being a fantasy fan, I love dragons. They are a symbol of everything fantastic. And so having a series based on them, I thought, oh, sign me up. But it was your classic shonen, and you watch enough and you start to recognize the tropes. So I'm trying to think if there's any others. Oh, most recent Tiger and Bunny. It's so funny that as an anime, it seems geared that a Western audience might pick up with it more than other anime.
Hmm. Particular TV shows. Are you the kind of guy that likes to talk about like TV shows? Like, oh, did you see that latest episode of that show?
Well, I'm a complete jerk. I when Game of Thrones was going on, I'd read all the books in advance, so I tease everyone with fake spoilers. Like, oh, so what do you think about the part where Tyrion's an alien? And they'd all give me this look like, really, you're trying this? I was like, yes, I'm trying this. And we would laugh, or they would scowl, and I would laugh, and you know. Let's see here. I've been really enjoying a lot of the Netflix series. Liked watching Luke Cage. Uh, Still like cartoons. Star Wars Rebels. The newest Ninja Turtles. I still enjoy. Oh goodness, Voltron, Legendary Defender. Netflix and DreamWorks really did a reinvention I was no longer sure could work.
So, so are there any other particular people that are bronies that you like besides Dr. Wolf?
Not very much. Well, I am a big fan of Josh Scorcher, Anthony C. Both fun guys. Seth, who runs Equestria Daily, is so passionate. I mean, he really created the information hub for this fandom, and I don't think the fandom would be what it is without his effort. I'm friends with the illustrious Q and Cal Payne of Equestria Daily. I've gotten to meet a lot of the folks there. I'm not as active online in chats, so I don't get to hang out with them as much. There's a very talented vector artist named who goes by the screen name Bones Walbuck, and he does very show accurate backgrounds in a stunning amount of time. I mean, just give him 2 or 3 hours for stuff that would take your average show 5 or 6.
Since we're on the topic of YouTube, how about YouTube? Are there any other people that you particularly subscribe to or follow?
Let's see here. Well, I was a fan of Little Karibo's work and Team Four Star before Bronies came along, and continue to be so. I recently got into Neebs gaming, Neebs. Uh, they're a lot of fun because they find the game within the game, and usually are having more fun playing that than they worry about the high score or the next achievement. Let's see here. I watched the Jimquisition, although I don't always track what he's saying because I'm not as I don't track video game news as closely, and so sometimes it's his reaction, but I don't know how well informed or how focused that vision is.
Oh, oh, okay. Let's see. Any local hangouts or meetups with other bronies, or just normal people?
What are these normal people you speak of? They sound terribly dull. I've never once met a normal person. I believe them to be an urban myth. I usually hang out with my friends we're anime fans, we're Japanese superhero, we're brony. Everyone has a sort of a different interest, but we find the common ground, usually laughing at everything. Uh, Running of the Leaves is the big brony get together where I live. And so I look forward to that and getting to see people here in my home state. But most of the time I hang out with friends and family. I don't really have the time to get to a brony hangout, which is both in some ways I'm glad because it's good to be engaged. At the same time, I'm sorry I don't get to meet people face to face about it.
Okay. All right. So here's a really interesting question, and it's a pretty big question. But how do you deal with criticism?
It's kind of like the stages of grief. I mean, there's always the ego and the pride that tries to flare up and viciously push back and denounce and usually attack the person offering the criticism. But it's almost like there's two me's up in the skull. One me reaches out, grabs the other, yanks him back, saying, "Hang on, be a grown up here." And then usually I have to go away and digest the criticism for a little bit, let it settle, see past the emotion of the moment, and then make a decision based on that. One early example, when I was doing my comics, a person said, when you draw Celestia, it's the same pose for her mane every time. And the pride was, well, it's a fixed medium. I can't animate a comic like that. I don't have that ability. But I was like, they're all static images. What do you care? Rah, 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 rah. Of course, I didn't say this. I've learned that it's probably better not to respond right away. So I went off and I drove around in my car for a little bit, and I thought, he's got a point. Just because it's a fixed medium doesn't mean I can't at least imply different shapes. So I went home and I drew several main flow stills. They're still fixed images, but now they look a little bit different to give the impression. And that was good. That was good feedback. But I had to get over myself first to acknowledge that.
Interesting. So, as a content creator, do you have any words of wisdom to give to people who are just starting out with their projects or reviewings or whatever it is that they do?
The first comic I ever submitted to Equestria Daily did not get accepted. And when I saw the comics that had been accepted, I was like, yeah, I can do better. And that mindset has always stuck with me. Your first attempt at anything is not going to be the Mona Lisa. It's not going to be a vivid documentary or the greatest animation in history. It's just a process. And you have to sort of challenge yourself. Did I enjoy this? And did I enjoy the potential of this final product enough to make another attempt? It's never a question of fame. I'd caution against counting subscribers or views because that always seems to lead to misery. Maybe a strong word, but definitely the wrong kind of dissatisfaction. You're angry at people for not acknowledging your work as opposed to pushing yourself to make your work more. So basically, do it because you love it, but don't be afraid to feel a quiet dissatisfaction that pushes you to be more.
Hmm. All right. Interesting. So, are there any future endeavors that you would like to indulge us with?
Well, I've been doing a lot of character videos, but I need to get back to actually reviewing episodes. Uh, we've got a lot of collabs lined up, which is both enjoyable, but it's also very demanding. It's very easy to burn out. There are times I'd like to step outside of Pony, and I've done that once or twice, reviewing shows like Brave Star or giving movie reactions. I'd love to tackle an old '80s show called Ulysses 31.
Oh my gosh, I actually I've heard of this, but I only saw like a trailer shot for it.
It's on YouTube. I mean, it was never, as far as I know, it was never released on DVD or back in the days of VHS. But it's fascinating to see how they tackle this and how you take a Greek, I believe it's Greek mythology, not Roman, Greek mythology, and update it to the future.
Hmm.
And I've enjoyed it. I've watched a few episodes. I will, however, criticize the voice acting is rather monotone,
Hmm.
but that's just the way of it. That was, at the risk of sounding like an old man, I grew up in a time where cartoons were sort of just finding they were just at the start line. We had the grand commercial revolution. So people were trying to push products more. Cartoons were the best way to do it. There was a
Exactly.
lot of stumbling blocks. So when people complain about an improperly layered object in a My Little Pony Flash scene, or they, it's funny, it's a valid criticism, but I also think, guys, I watched Ninja Turtles who the voices kept changing between characters. Believe me, there have been far worse.
Yeah, I was going to point out that the whole reason why I know about that is somebody at another con did like a whole presentation as to why cartoons back in the day were mainly just been made to sell toys. And that was the only reason why most of them were made.
It's true, but I'd counter that with that was the goal, but people, the creative staff really put forth the effort to make it more than a toy ad in many cases.
Hmm.
One thing I loved about Transformers, there were a ton of things that never got made into toys, but they were so wonderfully outlandish that you just didn't care. It was something that would seize a child's imagination. In fact, even My Little Pony, this show right now was made to sell toys. It's just Lauren Faust and crew really put forth the effort to make it more.
Yeah. And the last question that I have is basically have there been any repeat like questions that people have asked you over and over that you can think of at the top of your head?
Let's see, we've well, there's the general stuff. How'd you get in? How'd you your favorite characters and all that. Uh, repeat Often a repeat question is what would I like to see more of in the show. At this point, a Celestia episode is like water in the desert. She has been humbled. She has been brought low so many times. She has been the target of many jokes, but has never really gotten to show her best on screen. And I would very much like to see that.
Okay. And as an added question that just came to me is, do you have a particularly favorite voice actor?
There's an interesting. Well, I do love Tabitha St. Germain. She affects both Rarity and Luna so beautifully. And I believe she's the singer as well.
I no, I think that's somebody. I think what's her name? I thought of it a while ago. Kasumi Evans is the singer.
Oh, that's what I needed. Kazumi, when she sings, Rarity has one of the most gorgeous singing voices in the show. So but again, I'm so weird in that I don't think of the actors when I hear a voice. I think of the character.
Yes.
And so it's sometimes I'm completely flabbergasted even when people are talking about something very very meaningful.
So, that's the end of those questions. Do you have any questions for me that you want to particularly ask? I'm an open book.
Well, let's see what inspired you to get into this here fandom.
Well, it's a interesting story. How did it all start? I believe it was sometime in the summertime of 2012. Me and my friend were joking around because I noticed he had some pony videos liked on his YouTube channel, and I brought it up to him. It's like, what are those doing there? And he's like, oh yeah, I saw the show and I thought it was great, and I kind of laughed at him a little bit, and it's like, what, you see all the episodes? And he said yes, and I was like, what? But that the whole conversation like stuck in my brain till and I'm sitting in my room like, you know what? I'm gonna sit down and actually watch this. And so I watched the first season, the first two episodes, and I'm like, okay, what happens next? And then I kept going and going and going until the end of season two, and it's like, well, it's official.
There you go. Uh, okay, then from season two we had that whole brouhaha over certain cross-eyed mare.
Oh yes, I actually didn't know about that. I think because I watched all of them on YouTube, and I think the episode that I watched wasn't edited, so I didn't know at the time until I saw a Bronies react to the edited version. So I'm like, wait a minute, they edited that?
So do you have a strong opinion one way or another? Derpy, Bright Eyes, Muffin Mare, Ditsy Doo. Is there a favorite name?
I think I'll always remember her as Derpy.
There you go. That'd be Derpy. And this may be a little narcissistic, but when you watch review videos from various people in the community, is there anything you'd like to see all of us do more, or something you'd like to see addressed?
Hmm. Well, to be really honest, I don't watch a whole lot of them. I mean, I do follow a couple, but I don't watch certain reviews because I know some people have certain opinions, like, oh, this episode was this, and this episode was that, and me, I just watch the episodes, and if I don't like it, I don't like it. If I like it, I like it. It's very hard for me.
Is there anything about the show you wish fans would talk about more?
Mm, I'm actually surprised some people haven't talked about like the subtle hidden references or like Easter eggs of that kind.
So like what is it? Mystery on the Friendship Express, the James Bond references.
Oh yes, yes, those ones.
Or was it Viva Las Pegasus, where Penn and Teller ponies were in the background?
Yeah, yeah. I haven't seen anybody do that yet. That would be interesting.
Sometimes they're so numerous, like, I can hardly keep track at times. And it's also kind of funny. Do you remember in Traja they actually had the Bioshock twins?
Yes, that is my favorite reference ever. I didn't notice it until somebody put it on. I'm like, wait, what? Because I was recently playing that game at the time, and it's like, oh my god, somebody at MLP is a nerd.
Oh, I'd wager more than just one person.
Oh yeah.
But truth be told, I have not played Bioshock, so if not for the online community, I'm sure half these references just go right over my head.
Mm.
All right, but that's interesting. That's good to know. I always want to keep an ear out to what people like and want to talk about. And I hear people when they say, "Oh, I don't watch reviews because I have an opinion." I think that's very valid. That everyone has a reaction. We're never talking to blank slates.
I do like one of my favorite things I like to watch is Little Shy If I Am's Everything Wrong with this particular episode.
Ah, yes.
Those are a joy. Let's see. I don't have anything else. So, I think that about wraps it up. And
Alrighty.
we did hit the 1 hour mark. Yes, I have achieved official. So
Most officious.
yes.
Officiality.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Silver Quill, for joining me on this interesting podcast that I run.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yep, it's always good to talk to well-known people. I hope to have more soon.
Well, just keep putting the word out there. Just keep talking to people at conventions, and again, don't fear. People in the community, even people from the show, are still people, and they like to say hello.
I do try. It's a little difficult meeting them in person and then talking to them online, and it's a little different.
It all varies. Like I say, I enjoy some of the human element. It's why I can never visit message boards. It's too impersonal. It's too easy to assume hostility.
Yeah. But, thank you again for joining me. I hope to see you at conventions again.
Oh, I shall be out and about as best I can.
All right. Well, I hope you have a lovely evening, and we'll see you on YouTube.
Well, catch y'all again.
All right,
Thank
man.
you, sir.
Yes, you're welcome.